Is there such a thing as the chemistry and theology of public speaking? Welcome to the show, The Messenger. This is your host, Chris Dao-anis. In this season of The Messenger, we have lined up champion speakers to be our guests. We are going to find out their stories, their thought process, how they approach public speaking, how they develop their skills, and also let's find out their life messages. I invite you to sit back, relax, and join the conversation. Also, feel free to tag your friends in the comment section, share this on your timeline, or even do a watch party. Also, feel free to interact with us. Let us know what resonates with you. And if you do have questions, please type them in the comments section and we will have our guest answer your questions. In this episode, we ask the question, is there such a thing as the chemistry and theology of public speaking? Let's find it out as we ask a chemist, a theology graduate, and a champion speaker rolled into one. We're going to ask also for his tips on how to become a top-notch presenter and speaker. So again, sit back, relax, and join our conversation. Yeah, hey, hello everybody. Good evening. Welcome once again to The Messenger. And nakakatuwa kasi we have introduced earlier a special guest, a chemist, a theology graduate, and a champion speaker rolled into one. So if you want to join the conversation, please feel free to type in the comment section from wherever you're watching. We appreciate really if you interact with us through the comment section. If you have questions, feel free to type them as well. Feel free to tag your friends, share this on your timeline. You can also do a watch party if you want to. And also, kung kilala niyo yung guest, just give a shout out as well. Kasi kailangan natin yan and we appreciate that. So, hindi ko na patatagalin because I know that even if you are watching this live, several will be watching this on the replay. So our guest tonight is the Regional Leadership and Organizational Development Manager Asia at Lear Corporation. Again, he is a chemist by profession who shifted paradigm into training and human resources after 4 years of practice in his field of expertise. Ikukwento niya sa atin yan mamaya. And he has a doctorate in management and also a graduate of theology major in pastoral studies. He was a national speech champion in Toastmasters. I met him sometime in 2013 or 14 when he was competing at the national level. And I was so inspired by this man, none other than Mark Anthony Elardo. Welcome to The Messenger, Mark.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you here. Knowing that I am in line with great speakers in your past episodes, we have Mike and Neb as well. And it is always exciting to have this conversation with someone whom I have served the division as a district director at the same time, and to a person whom I have shared the stage with in competing in the International Prepared Speech for Toastmasters, whom speaking style I always admire. So thank you for having me here, and to all that, to our audience that are watching this live feed and to those who will be reviewing this. We hope that you will be able to learn something from the experiences that I have and to the stories of my life as well. So, Chris, thank you very much for having me here.
Yes, thank you so much for saying yes. And to someone who was a beginner way back and you were already there, it's an honor to having you here and we're having this conversation. Um, so before we dive into our topic of this interesting topic on chemistry and theology of public speaking, I'd like to know, kumusta ka? How's life and work during this pandemic? And how are you
Yeah.
dealing with the changes?
By the way, thank you for the title. It was so unique to have. I don't know if there's really a chemistry and theology behind public speaking, but nonetheless, thank you for asking. And I never would have thought that this is how 2020 would look like. Chris, people have built walls to make their places safe, right? But the pandemics makes us vulnerable even to the comforts of their homes, of our own homes. And it has almost been 7 months that I work from home. And one thing I learned through those 7 months is that the wife is the master of the house. We're talking with my wife and said when we were facing this COVID and the number of cases are rising, we joke with each other and said, "We're just married for 1 year. What if someone of us will have this virus? It would be very quick for us to apply one of our vows, which is for sickness and in health." And sabi ko, I hope hindi lang until death do us part. But nonetheless, humor aside, this pandemic has been challenging. It has taught me a lot of lessons in life, but through it all, the Lord's provision was sufficient. His strength was sufficient for us during this time. And it allows me to ponder that what matters most in life are the simple things that we have around us and the people that we love. It has been 7 months that I have been working from home. From time to time, I go to the office. And in the first few months of this pandemic, I tried having some exercise, and in the first 2 months, I lose 2 kilograms, but now I'm back to
Wow.
normal, and I'll gain 4 kilograms. I thought that I would develop an abs during this exercise, but now I think it is all just in a dream. But on the side of the organization as well, I'm just so thankful for our organization. Lear is an international organization. We are makers of automotive parts. And during situations like this, our organization is also being affected. But nonetheless, through good leadership, great leadership, I would say, we hit some bumps along the way. But our vision in the organization is we make every drive better. And I think despite all the challenges that we face, we need to make some adjustment at first, but it allows us to be more innovative. Training budgets are being cut, and we are being challenged by how we facilitate trainings. We are so used in face-to-face trainings, right? And we like
Yes,
it because we see how people react, we see
that's
how
true.
they interact, we see if they are nodding their head or they're already falling asleep. But it's very different in the virtual facilitation, but it allows us to innovate as trainers. At first I have been so used into public speaking, but when it was my first time to facilitate a training virtually, I really had a hard time because it's very different. You cannot see how people would react. Sometimes you keep on talking, but the person that you are talking to is not there. You have to answer your own questions or you have to laugh at your own jokes. But nonetheless, it also brings out the best in us. It allows me to be more flexible in how I facilitate and how I plan on training. And I think that is one of the biggest lesson that I have learned during this situation, that at times we become so comfortable with our comfort zones, but there will be situations that will trigger to bring out the best in us. And I am just thankful to the Lord in where He have given me the strength to carry on despite this very challenging situation that we have faced. How about you? How are you during this pandemic?
Wow. I'm inspired by your answer, and I was silently laughing with what you were saying because I can relate. I just got married late last year, and yun nga, di ba? It would be an immediate application of that vow in sickness and in health. But just the same with you, I'm just thankful that hey, we're still healthy. Um, kahit yung simpleng sipon and all that na dati I would contract. Ngayon, there's none. There were some minor things, but yeah, I'm just thankful that we stayed safe and
Mhm.
healthy, as well as to the adjustments of work that you shared. Ganun din, I do trainings and all that, and really it's difficult when you have to deal with all these changes. And the way you shared is even inspiring and empowering. So I really admire how you yourself, as a messenger, is giving that. I would always say this message of hope. So galing, and I would just like to go
Mhm.
uh, into your being a chemist. Itatawid natin ito sa usapan theology. How was public speaking relevant to your work before? Kasi you worked as a chemist before, tama?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. During that time, at first, I never thought that public speaking would be necessary for being a chemist. You know what? I have shared in some of my speeches in Toastmasters that I had a trauma in public speaking while I was still in kindergarten because I was delivering a poem. My family is a family of speakers. I was delivering a poem, but my
Mm.
father brought a camera with him, and when he took a camera and the camera, when he clicked it and it flashed, I forgot my next lines. I even asked my father in front of the stage, "Pa, what is my next line again?" And since then, public speaking was hidden into the deepest closet of my thoughts. And I said, and never again would I be on stage. I remember when I was in high school, when there is a drama presentation, which is mandatory in most of our English classes, I would just get the role of either a dying father or a criminal. Because the dying father, your only script would be my son, and then you die, and after that you have the same grade with the rest of your groupmates. And if you are the criminal, your only role would be I would kill you, and then the police will arrive and they will shoot you, and there end of role and still the same grade. But and that's why even when I'm in high school, I said I will find a job or I will get a course in college that won't require for me to speak in public. And so I said, chemistry, why do I need to talk in public? If I'm a chemist, I'll just be facing my laboratory apparatus and I will be doing my experiments. And so at first I thought that it is not needed. And at first, when my position was still as an analyst, it is not that much. But then later on, when my position changed to become a supervisor, at the same time the lead analyst of the raw materials section of a pharmaceutical company, it's very different now because we are talking to people who are not technically capable or they are not technical experts, right? So when you discuss with them things, it is not easy because as let's say for example as a technical person, as a chemist, for us when we look at something, we look at it by chemical compounds and compositions. We look at it as NaCl, or we call it sodium chloride, and we look at it with a molecular weight of 58.44 grams per mole. But to an ordinary person, it is table salt, right? So you are coming from discussing about purity and impurities and percentage, and then here comes a boss, an owner of the company, telling you, is my salt a good salt or a bad salt? And you cannot talk to them on the technical aspect of things because they will never understand, or they might understand, but they will never grasp how you are seeing it. And I think this is where I slowly learned that communication is very important in day-to-day life. It might not be discussing a lot of technical things, but it is making sure that people will understand what you are trying to do. After all, they are the people who will make a decision if either to continue or not to continue on a product. They might be the people who will give you an increase in salary, or they will not give you an increase in salary. So these are very challenging. And then since I am working in a pharmaceutical company, there will also be people coming from the regulatory department, and you will be explaining to them what's going on. If there will be situations in where the products are being questioned, you try to defend it. And I was never trained on a skill like this in schools. We think that they are minor subjects, therefore I don't need them when I will be applying my job. And so it was something that is really being practiced at that time. And if you want to convince your boss or influence your boss to promote you, public speaking is or communication is very important as well. So I have learned that regardless of what your work is, communication, since it is part of our day-to-day routine, is very important. And to make art out of it is something that amazes me when I recall how I've become since then.
Wow, that's well said. And I like how you responded to that comprehensively in a way that you explained as well that nung analyst pa lang, not as much, but as you go up the ranks,
Mm-hmm.
even it's required. And if before it was required, it's now more required as you go up the ranks. And that's so good. That's powerful, and it confirms what I would usually quote unquote preach, that hey, this is very important, and you coming from that background is saying that from experience. That's so good. So Mark, from your having listened to your explanation, I think you were
Mm.
doing good as a chemist. I would assume that, and I think I'm right. So what made you shift from practicing chemistry to training and human resources?
Well, I think that's the miracle there. I never expected it. I never pictured myself to do something like this, and be a public speaker and to talk to people. But what happened there was that I was transferred to another company after 2 years in working in a pharmaceutical firm. I was transferred to a wastewater treatment facility, and there my role changes. From a chemist, I was also assigned, because it is a lean organization. There were only, I think, 14 or 15 of us. Therefore, each of the employees will have multiple roles, and I was given, I think, 4 roles. I am the chemist, I am the pollution control officer, I am the environmental management representative, and I am also the administrative supervisor who acts as the HR in that organization. Now, these fields are very new to me. I am aware of how chemicals work, but I am not sure on how to put all together, maybe the chemistry behind talking to people. Now, what happened is one of our board of directors in that company is a Toastmaster.
Mm.
And she said that for me to develop my skills, especially that I will be facing our customers, our clients, and even students that will be coming in asking the processes that we have, and I will be facing regulatory again with the Environmental Management Bureau. She said, you can join Toastmasters. And I don't know what Toastmasters is at first. I thought it was a drinking club because it's about toast. And one of my cousin, and who is an active figure in Toastmaster, Georgino Olmilia, and the past governor, distinguished Toastmaster Alan Olmilia. I used to stay in their home when I was still new to in Cebu, when I
Mm.
was still working as a chemist at the time, and I always see in their wall a lot of plaque of appreciation saying Toastmasters International, and I thought that it is a a club for for drinking again, because they were working in San Miguel, and I thought it's
Yeah.
Toastmasters, it's San Miguel. And therefore it's there. And then I just realized that that was the club. So when my board of director invited me there, they were also there. I was surprised, and they even shouldered the first membership fee that I have with Toastmasters. Actually, it was quite a few years that
Wow.
they shouldered it, and eventually I learned speaking from there. And so I developed the skills in public speaking, and I learned that this is something great. This is something good. It is very different now. Before, we only see, in our day-to-day job as chemists, it seems that at times we already know how a carbon dioxide look like, even though it's gas. And it's very different when you are there. We in chemistry, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about Avogadro number, we talk about all of this. But now that I am into training, we are now talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and which is
Mm.
very different. Now, I have learned that, and through the years, I received this opportunity from another company. They said that they are looking for a trainer, but they are looking for two things. One, who can facilitate training and who have the skills in effective communication, but at the same time would have a technical expertise, because they want a trainer who understands the production floor. And
Mm.
it so happened that I'm a chemist, at the same time I'm a Toastmasters, and I have the capability to teach. And so they said it's the right match. We have a trainer now who will not only talk about behavior, but who really understand what's going on and the challenges that being faced by our people on the floor. And it became a stepping stone. I was hired as a training specialist in charge for behavioral trainer in that company. But I even remember that on my first few weeks, their gas chromatography, an instrument that is used by chemists in that company, was broken, and they don't know how to fix it. And so happened that in my previous company, I am a technical expert. So I was able to give them an idea how to resolve it. And there I was transitioning to the behavioral side of it, but I was still able to use some of the skills that I had in my previous job.
Galing. I like that, how you transitioned from that area to
Mhm.
another area, how open you are as well, and when you joined this weird what do you
This
call
weird organization.
it, which is that, and it opened you to opportunities that led you to where you are now. That's a
Mhm.
beautiful story. Um, so that's from chemistry to training and organizational development. I would like to backtrack a bit, because a part of your background is in theology. So, what made you study theology while pursuing your booming career in training and development?
Mhm. It's a nice question. Well, if I recall, the reason why I took up theology is I am a pastor's kid. So my
Yeah.
father is a pastor, he is a preacher, and he is trying to develop me to be what we call a pulpit supply, in where if a pastor is not there, they have alternate preachers with them. But during that time, I was growing up in a Christian family. I was growing up in a home of a pastor. So the Bible, God, and prayer is part of our day-to-day conversation. And we often have jokes with our fellow pastor's kid. We say the only thing that is good with pastor's kid in the Bible is that we
Uh-huh.
can use Bible verses to court a girl. So if we like a girl and we don't know what to say, we just quote Philippians 1:3, and we will say to that girl, I thank my God for every memory of you.
Wow.
And if we want to go straight to the point, we can counter reference it, saying to the girl, 2 Corinthians 11:11. Why? Because I don't love you. God knows I do. But you know what? This is the joke that we create to make among pastors' kids. We are so used of all of these verses, but now it transitioned. When my father asked me to do sermon, you need to really be, it's doing sermon is more than public speaking. You cannot just study it and get motivational quotes out of somewhere else and then give people the message out of it. You have to be very careful, because to those that are in faith, to those that are practicing the faith in Christianity, we always know that in the book of Revelation it says that whoever's add to the word of God, uh, our judgment in the end will be added, and to those who subtract the word, will be our blessings will also be subtracted. So it becomes a conscious thought of mine to get theology, so that it will help me in preparation for my sermons. And later on I realized that it was a design by God, because the principles that I learned in theology is very much similar to the principles of psychology. And psychology is something that I have not learned in the past. But now that I am a behavioral trainer, I need to mix my technical expertise with the principles of psychology to better understand how people are thinking. And through it, I was able to transition, or I took the theology course, and I always love it. I always love to study the deeper thoughts and meaning of the verses that we read each day.
Wow. Even as a child, you were studying theology at home with your father as a pastor, and how you shared your experience in theology and your the reason why you even pursued it uh,
Mhm.
inspired me even more. Kasi I would tell some of my friends that if I were to go back to school, dati kasi gusto kong mag-law eh. Ngayon hindi na. Sabi ko, if I were to go back, I would
Theology na.
study theology. And I can say na, because sometimes I would be asked to guest preach then.
Mhm.
And I've been doing speaking, training, and it's really different, no? Yeah, I don't know, it's on a higher level, and as you explained, it's talagang malaman. I appreciate that, and kahit ngayon nga ng pandemic, I was looking for online schools offering parang modular or distance learning for theology. It's just I'm exploring on that. I don't have a goal, set goal for that, but you now even inspired me for that. But let's talk about that some other time.
Mhm.
Now is the big question. So from chemistry to theology, Mark, is there such a thing as the chemistry and theology of public speaking? And what is it?
I think this can be a dissertation topic that we are discussing, right? Is there a chemistry and theology in public? Based on my experience and through my observations in life, I've learned that words are two-edged sword. It can either create a person or it can either break a person. It can either lift you up or it can either discourage you, right?
Mm,
If you're a child growing up and your parents is telling you that you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you grow up thinking that you're ugly, right? But
mm,
if you grow up that your parents is telling you that you're handsome, you're handsome, you're handsome, like my parents, they keep on telling me that I'm handsome. So when I grow up, even though I'm not handsome, then I have to believe them. They are my parents, right? So the point here is words is very powerful. It
mm,
can either make or break a person. And when I look at chemistry first, if you will remember your third year chemistry, right? Or if you have it in high school, if you have it in your college years, it tells us that sodium as an element is a deadly material.
mm,
Chlorine as an element is a deadly element. But when you combine sodium and chlorine together, it creates the table salt. And the
mm,
table salt is what makes almost all of our dishes taste good, right?
mm,
It is the seasoning that we put in almost all the dishes that we have. Therefore, two deadly chemicals, when you combine it together, creates a different meaning. And if we apply this in the principle of public speaking or in speaking in general, communication in general, I say that we always have a choice. Either we become deadly with our words or we become a source of inspiration to others. I would choose the latter. I would say that there are words that are better left unsaid. What would be our words if it kills a person? What would be our words if it will destroy a person? We are given the opportunity to be an inspiration to others. And so for me, this is the real chemistry. The real chemistry is all of us have this choice how to use our words. And if you would just use it the right way, if you would be able to make the most out of it, then words will not be simply words, but words will be an instrument to touch the hearts of people. And through it, you will be able to penetrate them and maybe create a sort of motivation in them and bring out the best in them as well. So that's for me is the chemistry. I don't know if there's a formula behind it, but the second one is the theology of communication or in public speaking. And because we are talking of theology, if I just remember it correctly, I cannot recall the exact verse in the Bible, but let me just, if I recall it correctly, according to Psalms 34, we have to keep our tongue from evil and speaking deceit. And in James chapter 3, it says that the tongue is small, but it is very dangerous, and a small spark can make a forest fire. Okay? So I think the theology behind words is to be careful of the words that we are using. Remember that in the beginning, God created the universe through words. He said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And he said, "It was good." And he said, "Let there be firmaments of the water." It was through these words that the world was created. Therefore, word was good. If you will go into the New Testament, this word in John became flesh and it even dwelt among us, and it became the Lord Jesus Christ. To those that are looking at the Christian faith as a principle that they are following, you might be able to relate on this. But my point is, the word that we have is something that can be useful. But on the same word, it betrayed the Lord Jesus Christ through Judas. Therefore, words can be something that we can use or something that we can use it against other people. And for me, the theology here is whatever you want to experience, you also give the same. The Bible is telling us that do unto others what you want others to do unto you. So for what measure we use is the standard that will be used to measure us as well. And therefore, it has always been my life purpose, Chris, when I will be asked of what would be my vision or my mission statement in life, I would always say that I want to be an inspiration in every speech that I deliver, in every facilitation that I do, and in every sermon that I preach. It is always a constant choice for me to bring out the best in the words that will come out from my mouth. And that is public speaking for me. This, regardless of all the technicalities that are in there, we might have all our vocal variety and we might have all our gestures, but having the words that inspire people and uplift people is what is very much important, I think. And that, if you combine together the chemistry and the theology of things, it brings out the design of how speech should be. And it is where public speaking is designed to be.
Wow, I love that. That's so powerful, and it's really you explained it well. And sabi ko while I was listening to you, dapat parang pwede itong panglibro
Pwede mong gawan.
Yeah. consider that. I appreciate how you really explained it with even those illustration from the sodium and chlorine. Tama ba?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, to the table salt, and it's so powerful. Going into theology as well. Wow, ang galing. And I share that the mission as well. I would always say that I aim to instruct and inspire to live for people so that they will live their dreams with love. And thank you for those words. So having said that, gusto ko pang i-drill down yun eh.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to ask, maybe for in future episodes,
Mhm.
I'd like to ask now, give us some tips on how to become a top-notch presenter and speaker, having been inspired of the importance of words. Uh, can you give us some tips?
Uh-huh. No, through the experience that I have and through the number of years that I have been doing public speaking, I have learned a lot of tips that this is the do's and don'ts. This is what you do, and this is what you should not do. This is how you get the audience. This is how to lose your audience. But through it all, especially based on experience, I think to be a top-notch speaker, three things. One is authenticity,
Mm.
meaning you can only deliver well if you deliver a message that is from your heart, right? Because out of the abundance of the heart, our mouth speaks it. So it would be very hard to convince yourself to tell a message that you are not convinced of. So authenticity for me is the key to making our speech better. Technicalities can win contests, but authenticity wins the heart. And that is always a mantra that I try to put in my thoughts and in my heart, that authenticity is very important and we will never go wrong if we are authentic. Who will question us if we will share the story of our lives? No one. That is our story. It is our life. It is our life lesson. This is our lesson. There will always be wisdom behind the decision of people. When we look at situations, we might have our own judgment, but we are not there. We are not part of their life. We can only listen to how they act. We can only see it by how they speak. So if you will be speaking, be authentic. If you want a promotion from your boss, instead of asking the question of, boss, why am I not the one being promoted? Why did you promote the other person? We can ask an authentic question like saying, boss, what does it take for me to be promoted or to reach that position? Would you coach me or mentor me to be able to reach there? So that's one for me. The second one is humility. I think we need to be humble, that regardless of our experience, regardless of our successes in life, regardless of the stories that we have, regardless if we are the champion or not, we need to humble ourselves that there are still a lot of things to learn. I tell you, I won the 2014 World Championship in public speaking, not because of me, but because I have champion mentors around me, and they will always tell me, Mark, that's not how you pronounce strength, because I pronounce strength as strength. And then they tell me, no, there's an ing in there. And they would keep on reminding me that when you pronounce strength, it should be ing, so it should be strength. And all of this. Now, if you will not humble yourself about it, if you will not accept the fact that there are a lot of things to learn, we will never be the best speaker that we can be, because it is only through this that we learned. It is through this that we maximize whatever is necessary, and it is through humility that we learn. And the third one is, I think, flexibility. Flexibility meaning we need to make sure that our styles will not only be what fits us, but also what fits the audience. I always say that when we talk or when we create speeches or when we prepare something, prepare it for the audience ear and not your own ear. Because sometimes we want to emphasize something, we want to we want to go into a lot of things, and we think that our style might be our best style, but flexibility is very important. I have been facilitating trainings outside the country as well, and you will see that a certain culture have another style to another, with another culture. Here in the Philippines, I used to play an icebreaker where I ask people to raise their hand and tap the person at their right and tell
Mm.
that person good day. But when you go into countries like China, and when I ask them to raise their hand and tap the person, they are not so used to it, because some of them, especially if it's a female on the other side, they are not so comfortable without asking the permission if that's okay. So therefore, the
Mm.
style that we use here is very different in there. Here in the Philippines, when we facilitate trainings, people do converse with us. And to other English speaking country, or to English as their second language, it would be very easy to get their participation. But if you go to other countries in where English is not a second language or a first language, they might be there listening to you, and the kind of interaction that we are expecting from them might not be the same than what we expect. So flexibility is very important. Uh, During my first few time when I was doing a training in that company that I had, when I was hired as a training specialist, my second training was a group of engineers. And after 30 minutes of speaking, I was not even able to get a single nod or an audience reaction. And I feel
Mm.
that I was not able to connect to them. So I have to get a 30-minute break, have to compose myself, learn from it, and find a way how to do it. And I think through my experience, 12 years in the learning and development, it's not every time that I am successful in doing public speaking. But I always say this: if people will enjoy your performance, enjoy the applause. But if they will not like it, enjoy the experience. Because sometimes we learn, but sometimes we will also learn.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. Authenticity, humility, and flexibility.
Flexibility.
Yan. Tapos parang mali pa yung pagbigkas ko kanina. I also need that. Authenticity, humility, and flexibility. Galing. Powerful. Sabi nga ni Miss Etheline Takid, ma'am, I think you know her. Di ba? Well said, sabi niya.
Yeah.
Evangeline,
Oh, really? It runs
humility.
in the blood. Kasin ko yan eh. So,
Yeah. I met her one time in a seminar with the DepEd, and I remember you when I met her. Galing.
you
Uh,
know that she's the sister of Georgine Olmilia, the wife of
oh
distinguished Toastmaster Allen?
no, I didn't know that. Small world.
Small
Hopefully
world,
we
yeah.
get to interact again, Ma'am Etheline. Ayan, hello sa ating mga viewers. So Mark, as a champion, your tips already for becoming a top-notch presenter is powerful. But I'd like to ask, in a special way, for people in Toastmasters or in any organization, what is your advice to those who want to become a speech champion like you?
Mhm. I think number one is to find the best mentors. You know, when I was doing my 2014 speech, I competed in 2013 and 2014. In 2013, I was first runner-up to Distinguished Toastmaster Pawi Uy. And then 2014, I won it. But I have my mentors with me. I have Boy Archie, who is in charge for my gestures. I have Georgine Olmilia and Alice Sinisa and all of this Evelyn Olmilia, Lina Durias, the pillars of Toastmasters. They teach me how to to adjust my vocal variety, my gestures, because I had a hard time doing this. Even the they call this one the grammar that I have. Public speaking is not is not my field of expertise in the past, and so they helped me, and my mentor even memorized my speech with all of it. And if you have this kind of mentors, you need to trust that these mentors are there not to destroy you but to help you. They might have harsh words telling you that if you will perform this way, you will never become a champion. And you have to accept it that those words are coming from a principle that they want to bring out the best in you and not to question your capability. Sometimes during our conversation and evaluations, we're not even talking anymore of what's good in my presentation. We're just talking of what is something that needs to be improved, because given that what is not being corrected is already something that is good. So for me, mentor is very important in this field. And
Wow.
second one is the technicalities.
Mhm.
As I said, I always believe that what wins the heart is the message. But
Mm.
what wins the judges and the papers will always be the technicalities, because there's a set of criteria that you have to follow. And at
Mm.
first, I was so confident that the message that I deliver would be enough for me to win speeches. But in 2015, 2017, and I think 2018 or 2019, I've been into other contests, but my mentoring and coaching was not anymore that intense. Maybe I feel confident about my capability as well, but I even lost in an area level. I also lost in a club level. I lost
Mm.
in a division level. And so it always brings me back to finding the right mentors and helping me. And with that, if you find the right mentors, I always say the second point for you to be a champion is never be afraid to be corrected. And lastly, of course, a combination is speaking from the heart.
Wow. Never be afraid to be corrected. I
Yeah.
love that. Maalala ko nung high school ako, ayaw kong magpa-coach, magpa-mentor. I learned the hard way. Kasi ako yung tao no na I want to do it my way, di ba? Mali pala. So thank you for reminding us. So have mentors and be open to corrections.
Yeah,
Powerful.
ako nga, I don't want people to see my script before,
Mm.
because for me, I always want people to be surprised with the words that will come out from my mouth. But they said, if you will join a contest, that would not be enough. Words would never be enough. Words is just 7%, right?
Mm.
And then we have gestures and eye contact and all of this that we really need to be very familiar of and be very comfortable with.
Yes. So the message and all the technicalities. Galing. You mentioned about the world champion of public speaking in the international level, and kumbaga yung ating competition sa Toastmasters yun yung pinnacle, no? I would assume since you've been joining contests that you had this dream to become that, to win the title. You still have that dream, and if yes, how are you approaching that aspiration now? If not, why?
I think when you join Toastmasters, there's always, and especially if you'll be joining the contest, there is always this. It might be conscious or unconscious thought that someday you will be bringing home the world championship of public speaking. And now I think that I am still dreaming to be a world champion in public speaking. I'm still picturing myself bringing home that trophy from the Philippines, not only being a semi-finalist or a finalist at the World Championship of Public Speaking, but really a world champion. Not just because of the honor that it brings, but I think reaching that field and being a world champion in public speaking opens a lot of opportunity for people to to hear your stories. It gives you a more network of people that might invite you, and therefore your story might inspire other people. And that's a picture that I always look, or why I always want to be a world champion of public speaking someday. But I think when we when we want to reach that goal, or if I want to reach that goal of being the world champion in public speaking, I should not rest on my laurels. I should prepare. I should drink memory boosters. It's very difficult now to speak for 5 to 7 minutes. I can no longer memorize my speech. I'm having a hard time memorizing that speech. But it's always about finding the story that you love, provided that you have the mentors with you and you prepare your best, not only during contest season, but even without the contest, you are already trying to prepare it. It's not easy to create a winning speech, because once you will be on that stage, you will be speaking with people of higher caliber than you, speakers on their own field, and whose stories are as inspirational as your own story. And therefore, it's not easy to win. It will be a gauge of who is more prepared, or whose heart is more ready to be a world champion of public speaking. And so if I would be able to change my mindset on how to prepare and to go back into my mentors and ask their help again, I think I will not be able to reach there. But if I will have this group of people with me, it will always be an honor to fight for the country again.
I love that. That if you are able to reach that, you'll be given more opportunities to share your message. And for me, I think I share that same aspiration. Galing. And sabi nga ni Miss Evelyn, proud of you, Mark. Sabi ulit ni Ma'am Evelyn, teachable, never stops learning. Ayan. Also, inspiring topic. Oo nga, this is really a wonderful topic, and I admire how Mark is sharing his thoughts and experiences. Mark, before I ask you my final question, I'd like to ask, balik lang ako kanina, when you won the national championship in 2014, correct? What did something change after that or along with that? Was there something special?
Yeah, the thing that changed, two things din, naging double-edged sword yun. At first, I have my own expectation of my performance. So it's difficult when you compete and there's already an expectation. You are a champion in 2015. People will tell, oh, the last year's champion is there, so we have to prepare for that person. And you don't know who your opponents would be, their styles and their personalities as well. So that's the second thing. But when it comes to confidence, I think when we join speech contest, either we win or not, the confidence level that it brings is very different, because the amount of mentorship that you will receive is very different as well. And being there on that stage, talking to people of thousands of people or hundreds of people, it gives you that confidence that there is something in me. That's why I am on this stage. It is not about bragging, but it is a validation in you that you have this capability, and having that makes you more comfortable in the things or the speeches that you will deliver as you move forward.
Powerful. So yes, indeed, it made you even more confident. Galing. So I'd like to ask now, Champion Mark, what are your top 3 life messages that you always want to share to people?
Mhm. When I'm asked about life lessons, I always go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And just a summary of it, it's the times and seasons of our lives. I always summarize it in 3 things. One, we have our choosing days. So we make our choices now. either
Mm.
it be in family, in our career, in our job, in our faith. But when we have our choices, we need to make the right decisions in life. Because after choosing days, there will be changing days. We will no longer be the youth that we are. Our body begins to ask for liniments and efficacent oil and Alaxan FR. So during these changing days, you will see later on that we might have given a lot of effort to things that might not be that important. And therefore, we have wasted very precious time. We might have used a lot of our time for our own, trying to find our own stones, but then we forget to look for diamonds. So our life should be an inspiration so that from our choosing days, we will feel good during the changing days. Because lastly, there will be concluding days. Okay? So whatever we sow, we will reap it. If it is something to do with faith, we will reap it when the Lord comes or when we will be judged after our life. If it will be through our job, the kind of job that we do, the kind of effort that we give will later on be rewarded during the concluding days by our management team and all. So whatever we give, the same measure will be given to us. So in that, I would always say, and this is something that I learned during the pandemic, that when I sat at the comforts of my home and I was staring at the diploma and the accolades displayed on the wall and on the shelf, I felt happy of my own version of success. But at the end of the day, I think that what brings joy are the moments that we shared with the people around us. It is about the laughter that we shared during the meals, the tears that we shed during K-dramas, no? The
Mm.
excitement of the first tomato that blooms in your garden. So in life, we have to utilize. Life is, if fully utilized, gives meaning, and therefore let us make the most of it. So in our words, we need to be an inspiration, and not just with our words, but more importantly, we need to make our life as the ultimate message. And since we are here today and we are gone tomorrow, then we should never neglect that life has its ultimate author, and that is God. And we are here not just to maximize the potential that is being given to us, but we are here to glorify Him and to do everything for His glory. My life verse is Acts 17:28, and it says, "In Him we live and move and have our being."
Wow. I love that. In him we move.
And
Sorry, I
live.
think that
In Him we
in him
live,
we live,
move, and
move,
move, and have our being.
and have our being. Powerful. Thank you for those words. And before I ask you for your final words, at least for this interview, and maybe words of blessings to our viewers live and on the replay, just give some announcements and also thank our viewers for joining us, for staying with us until this end. And I appreciate how Mark has been so generous with his sharing, all the insights and all the experiences. It's so empowering. It's so instructive and inspirational at the same time. So I hope we can do this once again in the future. To our viewers, join us again next Tuesday because we have another guest, the speech champion, will be sharing with us this. Increase your sales, improve your services through excellent public speaking and presentation skills. We Jot Chongbian, also from Cebu, speech champion. So we'll see you next Tuesday. But for now, to everyone and to me, Mark, Anthony, Elardo, share us your closing words and maybe words of blessings.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for this privilege. And to everyone who is here with us, I'm so happy to see your names here on the chat box as well. And we hope that you will review this. And my father used to tell me this: learning is a never ending process. So if we stop learning today, we stop growing tomorrow. So to our viewers, take this opportunity to learn more through the messenger, the platform that is being given to you by Chris. I think this is really something that is very useful to all of us, that can be applied not only with our job, but more importantly, to be applied in our day-to-day lives. And I hope that through the lessons and the tips that we have shared with you, in one way or another, it will also bring out the best in you in terms of public speaking, and more importantly, as how you live and deal with your life. So thank you everyone for being such a wonderful audience to us.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. I'm so inspired, I'm so empowered, and I hope it is the same with our audience. Thank you so much, Mark. We'll see you again in the future. To our audience, see you next Tuesday. God bless you, everybody. Have a good night.